welcome to another episode of Busted Speakers. I'm Alex,
I'm Ed.
And I'm Cam.
and today we're reviewing Magdalene by FKA Twigs. This is her second album and kind of fifth major release. She's got 3 EPs and as well as her albums. And Cam, what did you think of this album in summation?
I thought it was really good. I'm really loving a lot of these albums that we're getting in the last couple of years that are basically women trying to assert and take back femininity and explore their own, feelings about the subject. And this is, I would say, probably the most musically unique version of this subject matter that at least I've heard recently.
I'd have to agree there. I loved this album. It was exactly the sort of unique, creative, experimentally minded thing I needed to hear, and I was actually hoping that she would go on to after her past few albums, because it's been a few years since she dropped Melissa now, her last main project, and wow, I mean, vocals are just amazing on here. The airy atmospheres, the beat sequencing, the producers on this album alone, I mean, this is an excellent piece of work with many highlights, and I'm just glad to come to know it now. So, yeah. Ed?
Wow, I absolutely love this album. This is easily one of the best albums of the year.
Wow.
Honestly, in summation, when I heard the first single from this, which was the track Cellophane, the closing track,
Yeah.
I felt pretty adamant that I couldn't possibly get any more excited about the prospect of FKA Twigs being back, because it's been a good 5 years since the last EP, since the last thing she released as a full length. It's been ages. It's been half a decade. And basically, Magdalene, the full album, proved me wrong. This album is really, really great. It's kind of a sound design dream, because the amount of, just like you mentioned, the producer list on this album is kind of unbelievable in itself, but just the sheer quality of the instrumentals here, the sheer sort of spectacle, or audible spectacle, I guess you'd say, of hearing all these tracks pan out so gloriously around FKA Twigs' own narrative that she constructed is really amazing. And I feel like the album exercises restraint and makes use of minimalism a lot better than her previous work. I felt like her first album was kind of weighed down by its quiet moments in a sense, but here everything gels together so cohesively. And when we go into individual tracks, I have a lot of good things to say. So yeah, really, really great album, honestly.
Yeah, so we're all in consensus here that we all really enjoyed it. Do we want to go through all the tracks, or?
I mean, there's not that many, considering it's just a solid set of only, is it 9 tracks?
9 songs.
I might have to check.
Yep.
Yeah, which is, usually you expect double digits from an album, I'd say, but here it's because all the tracks are kind of so sprawling. One thing I wanted to discuss with you guys was, I guess, kind of the elephant in the room when in terms of this album, which is the song Holy Terrain featuring Future.
Okay.
That was the second single released, and I think it kind of threw everyone off a little in regards to how this album was going to pan out.
Okay, so I heard this song. Okay, I'll just say I heard no songs before hearing the whole album, so the first song from this I would have heard would have been Thousand Eyes. So I wouldn't have gone thrown off by anything, although even just from seeing this track list, Feat Future, that's become a bit of a joke, kinda. It's like, that's almost become a whole new name for him, because he's just featured on so many songs. He has to be in the top 10 most featured rappers ever. I don't know if this is even possible, but I feel like this song was going for some sort of commercial crossover appeal, because I don't know if she could really have a commercial hit, even though she's definitely talented and deserves one. This was more of a like contemporary R&B trap song, with Future obviously providing his distinctive flow, and I'm a Future fan, but I kind of didn't mind it. Some of her vocals on this song almost reminded me of the same sort of vocal range Ariana Grande could sometimes goes for. So
yeah, I was gonna say exactly the same thing.
Maybe if it sneaked onto a radio playlist and people mistook her for Ariana Grande, kinda. maybe it could be a bit
Yeah.
of a hit. It's okay within the album, it's okay without, but it's definitely one of the weaker songs here, I'd say.
It's really interesting because I think the first time I heard that song, which was completely out of context of the album, I was so disappointed by it. I felt it was really directionless, and I felt that the creativity just wasn't there in terms of the production. But on further listening, it does fit in pretty well on the album. And it's also the best place on the album to give a male voice. But having said that, Future's feature probably the weakest spot on the album for me. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not really a Future fan anyway, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it kinda. When I think about all the great moments from this album, the Future feature isn't one of them. I've probably made that mistake a bunch of times already and not even noticed. But
Even
yeah,
as
Holy
a
Terrain.
Future fan, it's definitely the weakest singular part of the album for me as well.
Yeah, just to summarize on Holy Terrain, this album is so good it made me like that song. Is all I wanted to say really. I love some of the lyrics on it. Do you still think I'm beautiful while you fuck me in flames? Being one of the best lyrics on that song and probably on the whole album. There's so many just utterly biting lyrics that relate to the kind of breakup narrative that this album has going for it. Do you have any comments on the song Holy Terrain?
Not really. I have no opinion on Future. I don't think I've heard any other songs he's been featured on aside from any inescapable pop hits I've heard out in public.
Yeah.
I know the comparison seems to be kind of a four-letter word among, armchair music critics these days, but I can't help it. Like, whenever I listen to something, all I'm thinking about is, trying to come up with a frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
And to me, this album kind of felt like the logical extreme of the love child of Janelle Monáe and Grimes. Alex was saying the vocals reminded him of Ariana Grande. I haven't
only on
heard...
the Holy Terrain, though.
Only on that one?
Well,
Yeah.
kind of on some others, but especially on that one. Her vocal range is definitely good enough to compare, I'd say. And yeah.
All right, so for me, I'm trying not to quote one of the reviews that I've read, just like, way her voice seems kind of thin, but she actually has a great range.
Yeah.
Just something about the timbre of her voice reminded me of Grimes, just less squeaky, and then it's kind of like that combined with the political bent of Janelle Monáe. Somebody on RYM also mentioned how this album is being compared a lot to Björk, which I hope I'm saying that right. Apparently I've been saying it wrong my entire life.
Did you say Björk?
Yeah, Björk.
That is actually the correct pronunciation. Most people say it wrong.
There's a anglified, wrong pronunciation of it, Bjork, which has become too commonly used. So I don't know.
Yay! I didn't done goofed. So also my someone said that the comparisons to her work are a little too common. I haven't seen any of that in any of the reviews I've read of this, but I couldn't help it. To me, this kind of seemed like an even more minimalist version of Vespertine.
Oh, yeah, I could definitely see that.
That's crazy, Cam, because I have a point to add on top of that I already had written down, from a previous listening session to this album, which is...
Well, please do.
Maybe it was inspired by those comments on Rate Your Music. I can't remember if I saw the comments you're referring to, but it seems like whenever any female art pop artist breaks out in any form, they're always compared to either Björk or Kate Bush or both. And yes, I realize I'm pronouncing Björk wrong, but... she doesn't care.
Say nothing of how you're pronouncing Kate Bush wrong. Oh, jeez.
Oh, my word. It's kind of a... And it's fine to have things as a frame of reference. I'm not shutting down what Cam said. I agree with him on all the comparisons made. And I agree with you, Alex, on the Ariana Grande comparison. But I'd say what this album does so well, it ties in with that. Basically, FKA Twigs manages to echo Kate Bush and Björk, but ultimately does something new with the foundations that were laid by those artists, I think.
Absolutely.
You can't say that this album just sounds like it was heavily inspired by Homogenic by Björk, for example, just because it has a similarly ambitious approach to sound design. and song structures. But people will do it anyway.
No, it is absolutely its own thing. It absolutely is.
And Kate Bush and Bjork are great artists, and the fact that people are making comparisons is just a sign that FKA Twigs is another great artist in a long lineage of great female pop artists. So it's great.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on, I know you mentioned it earlier as your first introduction to getting excited to her again, but my word, the song Cellophane, the last song.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I heard that, because technically that'd be the last song I'd hear as the last song on the album.
Yeah.
It works really well, but her like vocal restraint, and then she's like flexing her vocal range, her talents every time the verses draw a close. It's like a rise.
This album is a hell of a flex.
Yeah, for sure. But that song in particular, so emotional, and this is definitely a case of where the strengths of using minimalism in music is so strong. Like, most of it is highlighting her great vocals. There's a little, well, I mean, it's used properly, but the piano on it is quite low in the mix, and there's like little like da-da-dum backing vocals, like very sparsely used, just to highlight and emphasize how great her vocals are. It's a song of heartbreak and confusion within love. Nothing seems to work out right, just questioning everything, and it's just heartbreaking, and I can see why it resonated with so many people, and I'm just sad I never heard it in April when it first came out. I completely missed it.
Yeah, speaking on that, I think it's really cool the way she released that song first, because it's basically the chronological and thematic summation of the entire album's narrative. It's basically like showing the ending of a movie before you see the rest of the movie. But hearing it now,
without realizing it's the end.
Yeah, of course. We didn't know that it was going to be the closing track until the album was announced, which was
it makes so
way
much
later.
sense now, though.
Yeah, it does. And I like the song even more in the context of the album, because it feels like you have been through the emotions of this relationship. Like, I could go into a bunch of tracks and how they relate to this theme, but I think it's better for people to just listen in and pay attention to the lyrics and just see how the narrative progresses throughout the album. I've got to say, though, on Cellophane, it's not even my favourite song on this album, which is saying something, and I did not expect that to be the case.
Just because of how strong it is. It's probably my favourite just because I'm still bowled over by the initial amazing factor of it that people would have initially had back in April. Yeah. I'm still experiencing that now. I
also think Home With You and Mary Magdalene are almost as amazing as that song. The song Fallen Alien might even be my favourite song of the entire year.
That might actually be my favourite kind of as well. Every time I just look forward to it. Every time I listen to this, like,
holy shit,
get through Holy Terrain and get to that place.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not even like Holy Terrain is bad, but it feels like that is like a season finale for the narrative of the album up until that point. The song Fallen Alien, I mean, not Holy Terrain.
The vocal melodies are just unbelievable.
So catchy as well, and that song goes through so many different phases. It almost does the same thing as the song Home With You, which almost feels like it's two different songs kind of Frankenstein stitched together, but it works so cohesively.
It does, kind of, because there's a weird bit where it stops in the middle, kind of.
It works it's almost like two sides of a relationship complementing each other, and maybe that was the intention, but it definitely works as a metaphor for how cohesive it feels despite the kind of jarring tonal shifts that are happening. But I feel that way about Fallen Alien as well when it goes into the piano part in the chorus, and then you get these... Oh man, we have to shout out Nicholas Jar, because his contributions to this album are really spectacular, I think. Like the vocal samples that come in on Fallen Alien and the sub bass. I don't know if Nicholas Jar was responsible for that. For all I know, it could have been Skrillex. But holy shit, whoever did the sub bass on that track, thanks, because it feels like a logical conclusion to that style of music, and it's now implemented into this amorphous art pop, just near masterpiece as far as I'm concerned.
I'm always kind of confused whenever I see like multiple producers on a song. Jack Antonoff and Skrillex both How would they work together?
Yeah, it's crazy. I almost felt like Holy Terrain might have been brought down by
Arca as
Skrillex,
well,
but
man.
he contributes to a lot of the songs on this album, and Holy Terrain's the only real standout song because it's less than great. It's still a good song in my opinion, but yeah, just wow.
And Daniel Lopotan on Daybed as well. Damn.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a very atmospheric track in the way that One O Tricks Point Never's stuff is.
For sure.
I really don't know. Like, I wish I had paid as much attention as you guys had, because, like I said, I really loved it. It definitely left an impact, but gosh, I just feel like I need to absorb it a lot more.
It's a very dense album. It definitely had to grow on me.
Yeah, and
I'd say
I really liked your comparison. It was like a mix between Janelle Monáe and Grimes, because the production style and different musical styles there, like how the glitchy beat centric way the rhythms are, and like the lush art pop vibes, the way they mold together, it's such a unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been done before, but I feel like this is one of the best examples of just those two styles forming together for me. It always leaves every listen, every time I listen to this, there's always something new to uncover for me.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also kind of think, did you feel that maybe the piano was somehow like the most prominent instrument to it, despite the glitchiness and the lushness?
it always comes back to the piano, I feel. It's kind of like a running, it's the only consistent instrument throughout the whole album, really.
Which is why when Cellophane ends it and that piano is like almost the only other aspect other than her vocals, becomes such a strong way to close it, I feel like, musically.
It's like a light at the end, essentially.
Yeah.
I kind of want to make a comment on how this album kind of stands up as such a unique breakup album, because I honestly feel like this decade has been somewhat lacking in that aspect. The best breakup album I could think of from this decade before this was released was Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool.
That was a breakup album?
You can't be forgetting about My Girl 21 by Adele breakup album.
Oh, well, okay.
Nah. I was kind of joking there, but it is actually pretty good.
Was that even from this decade?
Yeah, 2011, I guess. But it feels so long ago.
It does. That feels like so long ago, I guess, because we're on the cusp of the next one. But
that's true.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this album is quite as good as A Moon-Shaped Pool, because that album is such a perfect just realization of both of its main themes, of the environmental aspects of the album and the relationship aspect of the album, and how that tied in with what was going on in Tom York's life at the time, and also the Radiohead catalogue. So it's kind of a lofty comparison. I'd give both albums a 9 out of 10, but I feel a little stronger about the Radiohead one. So, but with Magdalene, it's like, this is breakup album of the year easily, and up there with the best of the decade alongside that Radiohead record.
I will give this album, and this might grow because I really do love this album, I'll give it a 8 out of 10. I do really love it. Like, there are a few, like Holy Terrain, I never hate it, but it definitely is a distinct weaker point. But even with that, it's definitely absolved and absorbed by the sheer quality of the rest of the songs. Like, her artistic vision, the way she deals with her breakup within the narrative of these songs, the melodic ideas, the glitchiness, the sheer scope of the album, and the fact it achieves so much in less than 40 minutes and has so many memorable moments. Maybe it does deserve a 9. I'll give it an 8 for now, but I really did love this album.
Yeah, I initially would have given this an 8, but honestly, I've been listening to this non-stop for the last few weeks since it was released. This is one of my favorite albums of the year, easily. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Very much a light 9.
Okay.
I think a few of the quieter tracks on here, such as Mirrored Heart and Daybed, and also Holy Terrain being, kind of noticeably weaker than the rest of the material here. It took me a while to really get to grips with those 3 tracks, Mirrored Heart and Daybed more so, because those songs I actually think are great now. And the song Thousand Eyes is like the logical conclusion to everything Kate Bush was doing back in the day, which kind of makes this album worth the price of admission alone, but it just keeps on being great beyond that track. It's just an excellent body of work. I pretty much agree with everything Alex said, just the sheer scope of it, the execution of her vision being so one-to-one, the excellent production and sound design on this album. I keep noticing these new intricate little details every single time I listen, which is probably another reason why it grew on me overall. Yeah, I'm going to keep listening to this, even in my leisurely time, obviously, because 9 out of 10 is a very high score. And yeah, that's all I have to say, really. Well, it isn't. I have so many good things to say about this album, but that's all I'm going to say. Yeah. Excellent stuff.
I'm also going to give it an 8 with the, very high likelihood that it's going to become a 9 eventually. I really love the deceptive minimalism of it. I love her voice is incredible. And like I said at the beginning, I do think that we're at a point where the world needs more albums by women asserting femininity, or asserting whatever they want to about their gender expression and sexuality.
Definitely.
And I think she captures it really well here. And we could have gone so much more into like the lyrical themes and the title and what that means to her and everything, but I think it's good to leave that for listeners to unpack on their own.
Definitely, I can agree with that.
It's absolutely stunning. I'm going to love coming back to it and finding more reasons to love it. And just one more thing, I'm really glad that this album came out this year, because like even as I was re-listening to LP1 this week, I could tell that, even 5 years ago, I would not have known how to handle that album, and I really wouldn't have known what to do with this one. So I'm really glad that they came out now after I've had, some more experience with albums like them, to really be able to appreciate in something resembling full.
Yeah, it sounded like your score was actually the logical conclusion where our scores will end up, because you were going to give it an 8, but...
that makes sense, yeah.
But we're veering on a 9, but yeah, so it sounds like you're a few weeks ahead of us.
Yeah, it's true, I have been listening to this a lot between long play sessions of Death Stranding. That's pretty much all I've been doing.
Living that good life. Okay, thanks for listening to another episode of Busted Speakers. Hope you check us out again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.